If you look at science fiction movies, quite a few of them become reality if you kind of move forward in 20 years. And in many of the kind of science fiction kind of movies, you're put into a box, and there's robotic arms and kind of fix you or inject things for you. I honestly believe that that's the future.
Welcome to the Make Tomorrow podcast, where we venture into the heart of innovation and technology. I'm your host, Tristan Sternson, the global co-lead of our NCS Next business. We're going to invite on some very exciting guests onto this show. We're going to talk about their Make Tomorrow and how technology and innovation are shaping the world. Today is about Make Tomorrow Connected, and we have Sami Luukkonen, our managing partner for Telco Plus at NCS. Welcome, Sami.
Thank you, Tristan. It's great to be here.
We jumped straight into it here, right?
Sure.
We don't mess around.
Okay.
Before we get into the detail of Make Tomorrow Connected, if you could change one thing in the technology industry overnight, what would it be?
Oh, wow, that's a big question.
Got to go deep.
Oh no, that's so I have all the power in the world.
Anything at all.
If
you can't kill the iPhone though.
Oh, okay.
You need the iPhone.
We'll leave the iPhone alone.
Leave the iPhone. Yep.
If I had all the power in the world, and I know this is impossible, this can't be done, but I would kind of create standardization and openness to all the cloud compute, all the cloud storage, and also to Gen AI. And why I think is because if you look at the past 12 months, so it looks like we're kind of yet again moving to a big camp. So that there's a Microsoft camp, there is a Meta camp, there is an Amazon camp, and especially with the coming of the Gen AI, so you need to have billions and billions and billions of dollars to make it happen. So small players like here in Singapore or even Australia, so like they don't got the capability of kind of controlling all their life or what they are doing. So they are dependent on Amazon, they're dependent on Microsoft. So it's creating almost too big power in the tech world that you have the kind of three blocks that will control if you rule out China. Yeah,
wow. Okay, so three major players in the tech industry, the hyperscalers, right? They control everything when it comes to the cloud.
Let's look at the kind of next 3 years.
Yep.
That's going to be the fact that if we believe that like Gen AI is going to be as big impact as I believe it will be,
yep.
All the LLMs are owned by these three companies.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
So you're really dependent on them. So you have no choice. So you have a choice of three.
Yeah.
What do you partner with?
Yeah.
But then you're kind of giving critical power to them, or you are so dependent on them.
Yep.
So it's kind of scary because you never know what happens in the world.
Yeah.
So it's and you can't cut off once you go to Gen AI. You can't cut it off.
Yeah.
Because then you become dependent on it.
Yeah.
So and all the productivity and everything. So
I have so many questions I could go through straight from there, and we can go straight into Gen AI. But I'm going to ask you a really interesting one, right? Sami, you live in Singapore, right? We're an Asia-Pacific business in NCS, right?
Yes.
You've mentioned Google, Amazon, and Microsoft.
And Meta,
And Meta, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw another one in there, right? What about in China with Alibaba in this world? We're in a geopolitical world of things growing. We're talking about being connected. How important is it to have a platform?
Yes, really interesting topic because there's the kind of bipolarity has happened. It's not anymore kind of single polarity, which is the Pax Americana. So it's now China. US. The kind of technology starts to evolve around China, and then it starts to evolve around the United States.
Yep.
And kind of they are in clash. And of course, kind of Tencent, Ali, Huawei, clouds, all of those are like super important as well. So the interesting is that how do you create and are you able to create a kind of hybrid kind of capabilities, kind of combining those two? I'm not sure. Currently, kind of maybe your networks are in Ali Cloud or Huawei Cloud, but then you have your business applications on AWS. So it's not a real hybrid. So they're kind of a siloed. And it is a pity because there's no synergies that you're able to kind of bring through that. So that there's going to be China technology, and then there's going to be the US technology or Europe technology, but they start to go on different.
So in a connected world, you've mentioned all the different applications. I mean, you can have things on different things, right? I think of the cloud like it's a cloud, right? It's one thing, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
are we interconnected if we're not really connected, right? Well, so we're trying to make,
Yeah.
it's all about making tomorrow connected. So
Right.
we've got to get to that level of everything interconnected.
Correct.
Is it going to be interconnectivity between these applications, or is it that someone has to choose one application? What are your thoughts?
It is difficult to create connectivity or seamless connectivity, because if you think that everything is going to be connected, and when we kind of get augmented capabilities for humans, whether it's like this is AR classes, and it really should be like this, help me to navigate and kind of get information, and if you're a kind of a factory worker, okay, it's actually robots, but maybe kind of you're a blue collar worker, you still get kind of information, or you're a doctor or anything, you get information. So that gets connected to all the devices, it gets all the back end systems. So everything's super connected, and there are so many connection points as well. So you need to have the same standards over there. And if the standardization starts to go in different routes, the breaching them, it's not impossible, but it is something that becomes really expensive and cumbersome to do. So I think you will then have to make choices.
The standards really important. So
Yes,
governance
it is.
of standards,
Yes,
right?
open standards.
If I was to go with one application out of China or one out of the US, right? Eventually you do want the standards, right? So one of the previous pods we've done was around, are robots going to take over the orders? Do we have to worry about artificial intelligence getting too far, right? Yeah. One way to make sure of that is governance, right? So we want to keep people connected to it. Yes. So do you think it's possible for, like, I mean, we've got geopolitical issues all over the world, but do you think it's possible to create standards that are governed in different continents or different regions in the world? And then the easy ones to talk about is China and America, but what about things that might come out of Europe as well? Like, do you think it's easy, or there's a way that there's global union?
I don't think there's ever going to be a global governance, but there needs to be a national governance, and because the rules differ. So one of the experiments we did on Gen AI, we were kind of asking, I think it was a Golden Globe event in the US or something, and to summarize it. And then the Gen AI was kind of summarizing really well, but also it published inappropriate language, but is inappropriate in this country. But the same language is absolutely okay in US or in Australia. Yeah. But because of the cultural differences, so like Singapore would need to be able to control that. What's the context? Like the LLM bias. Mm-hmm. Like it's going to be super difficult to kind of identify that it is biased. Yeah. First of all, and then it's like in different cultures you have different cultural rules. Yeah. So it needs to be a national governance for especially content-related things.
What do we call that? I think the word is, I've heard it before, hyper-localized, right? So we're kind of taking something that's globalized and localized it. And in a previous episode, we talked about Singlish, right? As an example of an LLM, right? Needing to understand and interpret not just the way or protocol and the governance, but also the language itself and being able to interpret it to some extent. Let's talk about getting back to the connected side of it. One of my favorite things in technology of recent times was watching how things played out with TikTok, right? Mm-hmm. TikTok being a Chinese-based application. I'm big on this because of the connectedness of the world, one of the most connected applications around the world. And we talk about the large technology companies, but who came to the rescue of it? I think it was Oracle in the end, right? It was an American company that kind of came and said, well, we can help you with this. Like, how do you see other applications like that? They're going to come out of everywhere, and kids are connected. You talked about the standardization, the hyperlocalization. Like, what might be appropriate on TikTok in America or Australia is different to Singapore or China, right?
Yeah, that's right. Or Indonesia.
Yeah. How's that going to play out, do you think, with new applications that are going to come out?
No, I think there needs to be like in the TikTok. TikTok now is setting up data centers outside China to store the data over there. So there's going to become a kind of I believe there's going to be a regionalization happening. That there are still these kind of super apps.
Yeah.
But there are kind of an APAC super app. There is a Europe super app. There is a US super app.
So like TikTok in Asia, TikTok
correct,
in America.
correct.
Yep.
Let's kind of think about like Metaverse. So, so if you create a Metaverse that is kind of wearing Adidas shoes.
Yeah.
And this costs $20 to get IP that I'm able to wear an Adidas shoe in a Metaverse.
Yeah.
So if I kind of bring fake shoes to my avatar, actually I'm breaching IP, and I should be penalized.
Yeah.
But it is not Meta or it's not Adidas US that can sue me in Singapore. It's actually Singapore. But how do you know that I'm in Singapore? So I'm under the legislation of Singapore, and of course the access to Metaverse happens in Singapore. So there needs to be anyway kind of a local governance also to the access of these things, so that somebody can come after you. Okay, this sounds negative, but I mean to protect also the people over there, that we're able to find a governance structure, that we're able to identify that the guy in the Metaverse with the fake Adidas shoes is Sami.
Yep.
And then Sami is a resident of Singapore. It really proves that the devil's in the detail.
Yep.
Now all these kind of things come up. It's like, oh my God, how do I govern that?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, but before I ask that, how many TikToks have you done? Are you a TikToker?
No, I'm not. So
No.
I've done 4 or 5.
4 or 5?
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably about 3 more than me. That's
Oh,
good.
really?
Yeah, no, I did a couple in the early days. My kids got me into them, and then...
And I was provoked by my daughter, so we did it together.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a kind of I'm a co-producer.
Oh, so you're better than me, because I was provoked by my daughter to do it with my son, because I'm not talented enough to do it with her, right? So I think we all forget that TikTok started as a music application.
Yeah, I did it with my 7-year-old daughter, so she is not yet ashamed of me.
Okay.
The 12-year-old is ashamed of me.
Yeah, no, the 12-year-old just used it to laugh at me with my son.
Yes,
I think that's the main thing. I think we're the subject of it, not the subject in it. Anyway, really interesting. So governance, Metaverse, right? Creating your avatar. Telco is a way to connect the world. That's your area.
Yes, correct.
Cybersecurity and digital trust, right?
Oh, wow. You're bringing the elephants into the room.
Yeah, we've got Gen AI, cybersecurity. I'm going to have nothing left after this, right? We're going to have to think pretty quickly. But how do we... Like, this is the biggest concern, right, at the moment, isn't it?
It is, and it's an arms race. So that's how I always describe this, because the enterprises are falling behind all the time, and it's a kind of a catch-up that somebody breaks something, and then you try to catch up. The standard kind of what we are looking at, okay, it needs to be quantum plus Gen AI proof. And then, like, okay, what is the quantum computing capability of an average enterprise?
Yeah.
What's the Gen AI kind of counter-attack capability of a general enterprise?
Yeah.
It's a scary place, because especially when you kind of add those two together. This is the kind of quantum computing, which is able to crack all the encryptions of the past decades.
Yeah.
And then the AI or Gen AI, which is able to vary the things all the time.
Yeah.
So it's
interesting and it's scary, but it's also powerful to some extent, because I think about the telco world to some extent and the connectivity behind us. So we want to make tomorrow connected. We've got all these technologies that allow us to connect people from anywhere in the world, right?
Correct.
From all the most remote places in the world.
Yes.
We can create new economies.
Anytime, anywhere,
new opportunities,
anything. Yes.
Yeah. But then on the side, we've got to worry about, like, how do I know that someone's not stealing my identity?
That's right. That's right. And okay, the goodness is that telcos are big enough to kind of go after the quantum plus Gen AI combo. And the good thing also is that the telcos are typically kind of a part of the national critical infrastructure. So they are kind of governed by the sovereign state. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of trusted player, and it's within the country. So you can give the trust of security to a telco, and then it's big enough. But on the other hand, the governments and sovereign states expect telcos to do it for free. And this is not cheap when you go and do a quantum Gen AI kind of security. But it is this kind of funny regulatory relationship between telcos and the governments that the governments really don't support telcos, but there's like tons of demand. There's so many kind of CEOs of telcos that have forever complained about it, that they are put into corner with requirements and no help.
So interesting. So I started in the telco. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I started in the telco industry, and with a startup, right? We did $9.90 internet that flew. And it didn't apply at all. I've still got remember the dial-up tones in my head, but it was amazing. But so I've started in industry, and I've seen the industry transform over the years, and there has been that sovereign or that government expectation around telcos because the telco is the one that connects everyone, right?
Correct.
And but the commercial element of it, right? I'm really fascinated by this because it's kind of like, you started in Australia, it was like a 20-cent phone call, became a 25-cent, and that's how the telcos made more money. Then it became data. Then it became
absolutely.
But always and it's been hard to maintain margins. How does that even work? Like going forward, you've got an industry which has to make things affordable, right? And really cost, right? You can't charge more because we've got inflation and everything else.
No, absolutely.
So is it new products? Is it new areas? Like, is the metaverse? Can the telco create a country through a metaverse, or is there something?
I think the kind of telcos need to get new roles in this new technology revolution that is coming, and it needs to come from the government. So I mentioned this metaverse identity management. So I think the government should say that telcos will do it, and there is a slice that they get. And the slice might not be paid by the government, but the slice might be paid by the metaverse. So that there is a cost of acquiring a new user into the metaverse, and a cent goes to Singtel. Of Singtel kind of taking care of that, we're able to identify that it's Tristan or Sami over there. So, but without the regulations, you can't do things like that. But you need it, and then because the telcos now are in a difficult situation, because when the kind of 4G came, there was a killer app, which was the video streaming. Now that the 5G came, there's not a killer app, so there's no way you can really charge more. So it is about the new services now that needs to be.
So the killer app, sorry to interrupt you, but the killer app video streaming, meaning you needed 4G to video stream.
Correct, right? Exactly.
Now and then you're able. Here, there's nothing, right?
Yeah, there's nothing. There's currently nothing. So yes.
Could the metaverse be that?
Well, metaverse will make it better, because then and especially AR. So because you need the low latency here to look at, okay, what's that device, what's that, or navigation that go into a bar. So it needs to have a super low latency, but it's still to come. So it's not yet there. And then you're able to give a premium. But currently, like, okay, you have 5G. I have 5G, but what's the big difference to 4G that I had? Okay, if you download a video, it comes 20 seconds faster. It took a minute previously, now it comes in 30 seconds or 15 seconds. Okay, big deal. How much more I'm willing to pay?
What about range? Is there anything like, I think about it, during COVID, we did some projects in Australia that were really focused on connecting remote communities. So back to, there was an indigenous communities, it's connecting them into the rest of the country in areas which had not as great range. Is that something 5G or other products are going to?
Yeah, it is. And actually, that's why I am in this industry. So that's why, because what the connectivity can do for the kind of humankind overall, which is to kind of, if you provide connectivity to remote areas, you actually are going to change their lives of education, healthcare, remote healthcare, everything. So it is a big meaning for the planet that you kind of do that. But yes, so remote areas are really important. But imagine Philippines, where there's like 100,000 islands. It's not easy to go and get to an island. So there is this.
It's interesting. I did a trek year or two before COVID, right? And I trekked the Kokoda Trail, very famous for
right.
Australians.
Yes,
That
cool.
was fantastic. And the whole time I'm with 8 of my mates who were complaining about the fact that we couldn't check the football scores, right?
Yeah.
Yet no one was complaining about the fact that in our bags we're carrying books and medicines and stuff that we were delivering to people along the way.
Right.
And I just remember one night we were just sitting around a fire and I said to him, how much better would it be if we could just provide them the internet? And someone looked at me and goes, then we wouldn't have to give them books. They could get medical delivered, all this sort of stuff, and knowledge. And that is true. Like it is.
Like it's a life-changing thing, the internet. So
I'll ask you a question, and you might not know the answer, but definitely got more chance than me. How much of the world is not connected?
I've seen it, but
the world isn't than is.
If I remember correctly, it's like 60, because I remember I've seen the figure was like okay, what was it? But there was still kind of a big part which is not connected, and it comes from the population-rich nations.
Yeah.
So you would think that okay, that's the kind of a jungle in Africa. It actually is not. So it's the pockets of China. So there are still rural areas in China, in India, Indonesia, and of course that's what the kind of a brave plan of Elon Musk is to use the satellite connection. So let's skip this land stuff.
Yeah.
Let's go to satellites, and then we're able to give in the Australian Trail connectivity.
Yeah.
The productivity of the planet is going to be dependent on the connectivity.
Yeah.
So if you have the cloud compute, the cloud storage, the edge compute, which you need also. Then you have the connectivity. Then you have the kind of the Gen AI, the Metaverses, everything together. They're all dependent on connectivity, and the productivity will go up, and so the planet will be dependent on that. We will don't have any basic skills
on it.
Yes.
It's actually that's really interesting, because I think if you become too dependent on it, what did you say at the beginning? It's a race for like the warfare or the machine. Yeah, it's kind of it's an arms race, right?
Yes.
I mean, getting to a really dark space, but is that the next way of warfare? Like you cut off the connectivity of a country?
I think it is, and it actually is now happening already. So if you kind of follow where the subsea cables are going, you can kind of understand the geopolitics as well. So there is kind of the big blocks are looking at the ways that how can you cut off.
Cut them off, wow.
Yeah, so it's not anymore that it's a trade blockade, it's an information blockade. And if you go to, like SWIFT doesn't work with Russia anymore.
Yeah.
And they are like deep trouble. But if you would kind of turn off connectivity, that's a completely different story. So
in the old school days, if I talk to my parents about, World War II, you blow up a bridge so people can't drive a truck in, right? So now we cut an underwater cable and you cut off connectivity. It's going to have probably a bigger impact, right?
It has. Yeah, because the kind of like subsea cables, they are such a bandwidth. If you remember, there is like 2 terabytes per kind of the fiber that is now, and the kind of imagine the number of pairs that go over there. So you cut off, you can cut off a region at one go. And then what's your choice if you don't have satellites? So you need to have your own satellites.
Is that redundancy? You got sea cables, you got satellites, kind of covers both areas. Something gets cut off, you get wow.
But then you need to be a big nation like Australia affords its own satellites. Like Vietnam, it doesn't have a satellite. There's not a single satellite, or Laos or Cambodia or.
Like, why not? Like, is it just infrastructure? Is it just not been happening? Is it just cost? Like, why would a country like Laos not be able to have
affordability? It's a lot about and also to have the local talent. There are kind of unpleasant things with this technology kind of advancement that we see, but I still think, looking at it positively, that it is a positive thing for the planet. And if you look at the kind of back in Industrial Revolution, okay, it was bad for the factory workers at a time, but when time went on, everybody benefited from it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So if we go back to kind of this glass half full, right? The positive side of it, right? Yes. So go back to the beginning part. We talked a little bit about the governance, and it's the telco's responsibility to govern and to monitor and stuff like that. Is it global responsibility of the larger nations to create connectivity?
Yeah.
Number one, should it be our responsibility, like
Yeah.
in Australia or in America or
Yeah.
Singapore?
Or is it UN?
Yeah, or the UN.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that is if we create those connectivities, like does it then create more control for certain countries?
Yeah, and coming back to the very early point, which is what I say that I want to have standardization happen because now we're in AWS camp, we're in Meta camp, we are in Microsoft camp, and because they have the capability of doing big things, and connectivity belongs to the same thing. So it's in hands of very few companies actually. If you look at the connectivity standardization, so it's not too many companies.
So it's kind of like subsea cables or the satellites as well, right? So if you cut a cable, if Amazon say, hey, you know what, it's not going to provide it to that country anymore, right?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm not picking Amazon.
Yeah, I don't like them
right?
anymore.
Yeah, I don't like them.
Yeah.
We're going to turn them off, right? It's too much control to some extent.
No, it is, and of course every enterprise is under governance of some sovereign state.
Yep.
So they need to do if the sovereign state says that okay you do that, it's very difficult for a company to say no, they can't.
Yep.
So either they need to get out of the country, which is going to be very difficult, or they obey.
Yep.
So the enterprises are subject to geopolitics, unfortunately. So it's. But there's not too much we can do about that. So I wish I could.
I have two topics I really want to explore. The first one, which I just thought about now, right? We're talking about connectivity. The world went through a pandemic. Right?
Yes.
Singapore and Australia, two of the most locked down nations in the world, right? We're in the telco industry. Did COVID change the connectivity, or did COVID? How's COVID changed the world from a connectivity perspective, or make us more connected?
Yeah, it's the start of the COVID was panic for telcos.
Yep.
Because suddenly the kind of points at which the traffic started to be generated and consumed moved out of the cities.
Yeah.
Suburbs and also the volumes went like boom. So the cities went there was a kind of fall down. It's like it went to zero.
Yeah.
So there was a complete rebuild and re-optimization of the networks happening at the first 3 to 6 months of the COVID. And it was actually surprised that the telco industry survived that, because when the COVID started, there were a lot of kind of thinking, okay, are we kind of equipped enough to carry the traffic to be suddenly fragmented and distributed rather than centralized? And surprisingly, it was able to do, but there was a lot of
tried and tested, and there's no better way to test it than
the
to
real
have
thing.
no alternative. Right?
Yes, well, and that's what it was. So the telcos were like, or the network folks in the telcos, they were like super busy, so they were doing long days.
And the last topic I got to explore with you, just around the metaverse. I love the metaverse, right?
Yeah, sure. So do I.
I've said a few times on it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't just want to be the guy who buys a block of land next to Snoop Dogg because it's cool, right?
Yeah.
It's got no value, but I see enormous value with it. One area I love is medical and preventative and all this. And I recently saw a example of the metaverse being used where there was a surgeon in one country.
Right.
Operating
remote.
I like to say it was operating on a person, but it was actually operating on a banana remotely, right?
Right.
Now, the elements of everything we've talked through have come into this, right? You've got the metaverse, you've got probably 5G connectivity.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be, like, if you're going to have heart surgery from someone who's in a country that's on a different time zone, a different place for a robot, like, what are the things we need to consider? And do you think that'll be a big thing?
The funny thing is, if you look at science fiction movies, quite a few of them become reality if you kind of move forward in 20 years. And in many of the kind of science fiction kind of movies, you're put into a box, and there's robotic arms and kind of fix you or inject things for you. I honestly believe that that's the future.
Yeah.
And that when you kind of go to disaster areas, there are kind of two things you'll bring. You bring two containers. One is connectivity container, and then you bring the medical container. But you don't have the specialists.
Yep.
So put Tristan in the box and then fix you there. I think it's honestly a kind of a reality not too far from now.
That's amazing. So I'll tie everything together, but if you got a remote community somewhere in the country which just doesn't have access to the medical staff and medical expertise that we have, and you've got a surgeon that's somewhere else in the world, if we can get them connectivity
And the
into
box.
the box, then all of a sudden you can be performing life-changing surgeries in different countries.
You kind of literally kind of save lives with that thing. Absolutely. And it doesn't mean that you need the world's best brain surgeon every time to do it, because they are just kind of basic surgery is not available. So that just basic surgery saves lives.
So I'm just imagining a disaster zone somewhere in the world. Something happened.
Drop it down.
Earthquake, a tsunami, or something. You drop in a box.
Yes.
The box has everything in it, and all of a sudden you can start. Wow,
because you can put the power, the connectivity, and the medical box where you're put in.
Wow.
Yeah.
That I'd love to end on that, but I'm going to ask you one more question, because that's like we've gone full spectrum of
the whole humanity.
AI to humanity, and that to me is amazing, because that is what Make Tomorrow Connected is about, right? And it's a passion I think you have, I have as well, around connecting people and giving people more opportunities in life around the world. What's the one thing you look forward to over let's call it the next 3 years, not 1 year, but in the, if we're thinking about making tomorrow more connected, what excites you the most?
In 3 years, so it is. Actually, what I'm hoping for is coming is what I mentioned earlier, the AR wearables. So that they really come here, because
so in your glasses, you don't have to wear the big lenses.
It's like here, which is connectivity exists to keep it, but it'll make the world much more safer. So, for example, in car driving, so you can have the navigation and everything not on the HUD, but kind of here as well.
Glasses,
you get the information, or you can have an alerts of the car coming when you're walking, or so it can make safer. It makes the productivity increase in the factories and things. So it helps in the kind of medical care or maintenance or anything. So it's something that is close enough and has a big enough impact that it would improve the way we live, play, and work.
That's awesome. Thanks, Sammy. I could talk to you about this all day, and I reckon I will on the way out. I've got a few things that I want to ask, but that's been an amazing conversation.
It was cool.
If you found today's episode interesting and want to hear more about our Make Tomorrows, please subscribe to our channel.